Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am Gary Gatto, and welcome to Race First coverage of round one of the inaugural season of the Velocity Online Racing IR05 series as we come to you today from one of the crown jewels of all of IndyCar racing, Michigan International Speedway. Skies are clear. Air temp is a very comfortable 65. Track temp right now at 95. Wind gusts are light. Humidity is right about in the 45% neighborhood. Joining me in the booth, he is a former champ in the iRacing IndyCar Fixed Series and recently won a 4.4K strength of field barn burner here a couple of weeks ago in the Indy Fixed Series. Please welcome Mark Murphy. Mark, new season, hope springs eternal. We're in a very old car, though, and we're going to see a different way of IndyCar racing here. Maybe the old style, back to the IRL days, where we're running the very bottom, and it's going to be very hard to pass on the high side. And you discovered a couple of other things while you were testing the car out yourself. That's going to make this race a challenge for everybody in this, which we're going to have a pretty big field, about a 20-car field.
Yeah, so these guys are going to be faced with things that you don't normally have to deal with in an IR18. The first thing that you'll notice is that we'll notice here is that this car does draft very well. It does not have the top end speed that we're used to at Michigan. 220 miles an hour seems to be about the limit of where they can go, and that is on the chip. And so you're going to see guys pull up in the draft and then kind of stall out because of the aerodynamic and power limits of the car. You're also going to see handling more or less not be an issue unless you're leaving your pit box or on a start or restart. These cars, not turbocharged like the current cars, but they are 3.5-liter V8s, normally aspirated. They have a very narrow power band, and when you're in that power band, you can light the rear tires up very quickly. So getting on and off pit road, first gear off of pit road onto the apron, and starts and restarts are going to be a huge thing. And the third thing is that these cars are completely unable to get off of one another. We're going to see 2x2, in some cases 3x3 racing throughout the field, and they're not going to be able to get off of one another. If I look at that front wing on Cedric's car right here, as we're watching these guys take time. If you look at the front wing on this car, the surface area of one Speedway front wing on an IR05 is the surface area of the entire front and rear wing on an IR18. So that's how draggy and how much downforce these cars make.
Well, with about a minute 13 left to play, or excuse me, minute 30 left to play, we have Lucas Santos to the top with a 216.9. A lot of records, a lot of stuff has been set here at Michigan. The USAC Trek records, 211.392. Tom Steva set in 78, which was an 11-mile-per-hour increase from the year before. Kart track record, Paul Tracy set in 2000 with a speed of 234.9. The IndyCar track record, Thomas Scheckter, 2003 with a speed of 222.4. There's tons of career win stats here. By far, the leader in wins here is Johnny Rutherford with 4, and one of them was a 500-miler. Gordon Johncock had 4. One was a 500-miler. For the longest time, they did not run 500-milers here until the mid-'80s. Just to let you know that. That was kind of at the closure of, as a result of the closure of Ontario. This became a Triple Crown track. Bobby Unser has 3. He had 1 in USAC, 2 in kart. Bobby Unser has 3, 1 500-miler. Mario Andretti does. Rick Mears has 3 wins here, 1 500-miler. Bobby Rahal's 3 wins, not a single one of them a 500-miler. AJ Foyt, 2 wins, not a single one a 500-miler. Also on the 2 category, and Michael Andretti, 2 wins. Both 500-milers, so he's had a little bit more success here than Indianapolis. To Scott Goodyear, 2 wins here in 500-mile races, 92 and 94. And then Tony Kanaan has 2 here, 1 in kart and 1 in IRL. 1 in kart in 99 and 1 in IRL in 07. So he's kind of, other than Bobby Unser, kind of bridging the gaps between 2 series. So with that said, we just went all zeros on the board, and let's line them up and let's go racing. Let's get today's starting lineup in.
Absolutely. On the pole with a lap at 33.207, Lucas Santos. Outside will be Liam O'Sullivan, 33216. Second row, Daryl Winninger and Pedro Blevel. Row 3, Jonas Weber and Maximus Molina. Row 4, Sebastian Kinder, our good friend. Outside of him will be Patrick Salvazzi. 6th row, Edson Santos and Julian Altena. Row 7, Fyodor Dazvinzenko and Cedric Holblum. seventh row, excuse me, will be made up of Jonathan Diggs and Zachary Mertez. Row 8, Matthew Weeks and Gary Lovern. Row 9, Sam Karasala and Alexander Bani. Row 10, made up of the VOR entry of John Christensen and Matthias Strauss. Row 11, Chris Lewis and John Silva. And setting no time, shotgun on the field, number 31, Bill Colley.
I think Bill might have an inkling of what's going to happen, and maybe starting in the back might be a good spot.
It's not, and look, Bill is a member of our community, very well respected. He tries extremely hard. He is very much still in the learning phases, and I've been known to do that on road courses, as has been well documented. I am a very, 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 very bad road racer, and so I used to just like to start in a pit lane and make laps, and that could be what Bill's doing. He's just going to start in the back, make laps, feel how the car runs. It's a long race, Gary, 150 lapper, 300 miles. You've got time, and there is definitely going to be
cautions.
There is going to be calamity. It's just a matter of when.
Definitely are going to be cautions. That is for sure. And Kai's kind of taking the last minutes to load in as we see them lining up there in the staggered formation on the on pit road. Someone wants to get a start on there. That's Cedric Colblum. He's ready to roll. I don't blame him. Lucas Santos on the front row. Liam O'Sullivan, he's been working on his flashing, and I don't mean that in a very negative way. I'm talking about on the racetrack. His blinking and everything, I believe he is now on a wired connection, but he's still blinking a little bit, so looks like we got a little bit more work to do to improve that connection, but he is up there in P2. We'll continue to watch that. The blinking, especially in close quarter racing here, is going to be really, I think, to his advantage. But he was talking to me offline and personally about it. He does not want to, win races and be racing that way. He wants to be seen and all that, right up front and not have to hinder anybody.
Oh, for certain, sure. He's one of those he's a rider engineering guy. Liam O'Sullivan definitely in the IR18 side is still learning ovals, and so he's doing this to learn the ovals. This, of course, an all oval series. This car built for ovals. It is the last vestige of the original IR01, not the one we have in the sim, Gary. The original IR01, which, as you know.
So yeah, that was the cars from 97 and 98. Actually, the package was to run 97, 98, and 99, and then they went with a new car every 3 year, but they had aero updates in between. But yeah, we're talking Dallara, G-Forces, kind of back in the very early days, and then this the Riley and Scott, which won one race, getting ready to go green. Buddy Lazier at Phoenix, but yeah, that was the initial three that were on the menu for the Indy Racing League when it started. And Lucas Santos,
here we go.
huge lead. Excuse me.
Oh, absolutely fine. Here we go. Car's already starting to get strung out in the mid pack. Santos going to lead him away. We're going to see Liam slot into second, I believe, and they're going to start getting strung out. Now, here's the thing, Gary. I don't necessarily know that, even though these cars don't have a huge top end, I don't know that getting that big of a lead is ever a good idea.
No. And when collisions do occur, it's bonus time, because this is a legacy car, but bless iRacing's heart, they updated the damage model on it, so we will see parts fly now.
Hey, how about that? That's just what we need, is a damage model with parts on a car that cannot not run in a pack on a super speedway. We're going to see lots of, as I call it, free Dallara parts strewn across Michigan International Day. By the way, you were mentioning the things they used to do here before this 500-mile race. At one point, they ran twin 200s.
Yes. Back in the 70s, they ran twin 200-milers here. The Norton, I think they were called Norton 200s.
Yeah, well, that would track. Roger Penske owned the Speedway at the time. Originally built by American Raceways Incorporated, this joint, it was their flagship, if you recall, they had this, Atlanta, Riverside, Texas World, and then they finally went bankrupt building a track. They were going to build one of these in New Jersey, in the New York City area, so out near the Meadowlands. And that finally finished them off. Roger Penske buys it out of bankruptcy. Another interesting tidbit about Michigan International is that it did, and I don't know if it still does or not, it did have a road course at one point that was very well used, and the road course was designed by Sir Sterling Moss. How about that for some?
Well, there is an infield road course you can use at Fontana, rest in peace. But I don't think there is an infield road course here as one of the configurations you can use for Michigan. But there they are, the traditional IRL line right on the bottom.
Yeah, and it's going to be so difficult to get out and pass because, again, you're on the chip as soon as you hit 219, 220 miles an hour. One of the things that I was trying to manage in practice when I was out practicing with these guys, it's just you hit the chip, you lose about 3 to 4 miles an hour in speed, and so that can be a huge momentum killer. How do you manage the chip? The winner of this race may very well be the guy who's able to manage the chip.
Watching Pedro Bibel, he was trying to make the second line work, and I think he was hitting that chip that you were talking about. Let's ride along with him and see if we can hear.
Right up to the edge of it. You should. You'll hear it skip if he gets to it.
He's rolling out of it just in time there.
Yeah, you can hear he's got a choice. You can either roll out of it just a little bit, or you can hit it. But if you hit it, you're going to go from 219, 220 back down to 216.
Yeah, might as well deploy a mini parachute out the back.
Yeah, and that's something that I kind of thought about, you know, and of course, the thing I didn't look at was fuel, but you know, typically in these races, especially the 18s, and I would assume it holds here, you may not want to be leading here, you know, because the fuel maps and so forth. It may be a situation, Gary, where, you know, you can go 2 or 3 or 4 extra laps by just sitting in line running fuel 3, fuel 4.
Well, remember, they don't have fuel 3 or fuel 4 in these. The tools are locked, so no, you can't even change engine management on these. So your engine management is your right foot.
I don't know if Julian has them unlocked or not. I was able to mess with it in practice, but either way.
I thought open setups you could do everything. Fixed setups you couldn't do anything but drive the car. But we're watching Lucas Santos still here, leading 9 of 150 very early on, 300-mile race. Everyone's showing a lot of patience at the moment. Still all 23 cars running. We got Lucas back to P23 right there. Matthias Weeks, and he is driving for that TI racing team that's making their debut today.
If you were going to pick one or two guys in this field, in my opinion, that were going to be the first ones to jump out of line and try to make that high side work, Edson Santos and Bleibel would be two that I would absolutely figure would be the first two to go do it. Raphael Eckert pops in the chat and says you can push the car in front of you if you're running close. That is another kind of quirk of these things, Gary. If you get the needle nose right on the attenuator, you can kind of bump draft in these cars.
Rafi Eckert, the DW12 Series champion, and we're sitting there talking about his teammate from that series, Edson Santos. So yeah, making that. Getting that nose right under that rear attenuator. Let's ride with Chris Lewis real quick because he's got a good shot of Santos attenuator right there. That square box, that is a carbon fiber, and that's actually there to absorb impact when he's back into a wall.
So that was originally put there. These cars did not have that originally.
No, it did not.
As designed, that was put there as a response to Eliseo Salazar's crash at Walt Disney World in 1997. They discovered that they discovered that the engines being so much heavier than the 2.65 Corvette racing engines that they were used to back then, they were 4-liter V8s. They were de-stroked and cut down in size to limit speed. Became 3.5 liters, but they put that there after Salazar's crashed because they found that the engines and transmissions were so heavy that it was causing injury. So they put that there to absorb impact. Yeah. And it's been a feature of
IndyCar racing ever since.
It was a feature of every IRL car. It's on the cars now. It was on the Champ cars. It was on the DPO when it was introduced.
That turn 3 at Disney in these cars claimed quite a few unwilling driver and career-threatening injuries. The least of which we know for sure is Sam Schmidt got in a wreck there at turn 3 at Disney that paralyzed him. Davy Jones was on the heels of a P2 at the 96 Indy 500, wrecked in testing there, and pretty much lost his drive. He was injured so much. That went to Kenny Breck, and so how that changed history. And then, of course, we're talking about Eliseo Salazar backing into that turn 3 wall one more time. And another reason why IndyCars didn't go back to Disney after a while was that turn 3 wall was very, very daunting. I remember even talking to Richie Hearn about it in a offline chat over on the Lionheart Discord server, and he says that was one of the more scarier tracks that the drivers would admit to.
Yeah, it very much is. Imagine, for the viewers at home now, a much more severe Phoenix. With a much more severe angle, and we're watching. I got to interrupt you, Gary. We're watching Chris Lewis. Edson Santos, and Maximus.
Topside work.
Yeah, they're making that outside go. I have a feeling the guys up front saving a little bit of fuel in concert with the guys on top, not having to be as. They're not having to be as generous with their lifting. Stay off that chip. Yeah, they've got a further distance to travel, so they're not going to be going as fast up there. Maybe, they might be scrubbing a little bit more speed up top. Sometimes you do that initially in the corner, so that may be helping them. But that top line is going to catch the leader here in fairly short order, probably the next 4 or 5 laps or so.
Look at 3 wide going down the backstretch. Watching Maximus Molina. He is leading that outside line, and that Chip Ganassi target throwback.
That's right. It's a good-looking ride.
It is a good-looking ride. Not a good day for Chip Ganassi at St. Pete today. 2 cars crashed out. One was helped a little bit.
Though, I said this while I was watching a race. I turned to my wife and I looked at Natalie and I said, after that first lap, I said, but doggone, if Scott Dixon couldn't get dumped in the septic tank and come out smelling like Old Spice.
Him and Palou did very good today. They managed to get top 10 finishes, and Palou got up to I think knocking on the door to the top 5 there at the very end.
Absolutely, but Dixon should have been dead in the first corner.
Yeah, he did. He was being muscled big time.
He was 4 wide, darn near going through the grass, and I said, man, for that guy, he has all the luck except with pit speed limiters in Indianapolis. You've got Molina now up to 3rd, working on 2nd. That's Winiger there.
And Santos did not come up the block, so we're not seeing the. Now, if one of the NASCAR guys, and that's Chris Lewis's gang, they're primarily NASCAR guys. And I drove a little NASCAR for Chris Lewis's team. In fact, for the exact sponsor that he's sporting on the side of their car. I brought one race I drove for that sponsor was one of Chris Scala's Daytona 500s, and I brought the car home 4th after hanging out in the back all day. It doesn't matter where you race all day. It matters where you finish the day, and I drove her up to 4th. But I would expect the NASCAR drivers to try that high line and try to work their way around. And then when they get up there, I was expecting NASCAR drivers probably to start feeding both lines to try to keep the runs at bay.
Well, you saw Santos just do it a little bit there. He's kind of working both sides of the street a little bit, but can't. You're never, I don't think, ever going to be able to keep top at bay. I think that second lane, just like it is in the 18. The IR18 and the DW12 is eventually going to reign supreme because you're able to keep be able to keep the RPMs up there.
Molina to the outside, getting a nose there.
Yeah, now. I don't think that Santos is going to lose him. Those two are pretty much just going to stay glued like that. We're going to see
Molina gets credits for that one, and Chris Lewis is now getting involved here.
Yeah.
Cars to the inside, almost. Daryl and Zachary almost made contact with one another right there going in the one as they floated up a little bit off the line. I wonder if the bottom cars are starting to get a little wear on those tires now, and they don't really want to be on the bottom.
No, I didn't discover a lot of tire wear, but that could very well be. Chris Lewis looks like he is itching to make it 3 wide, Gary. It looks like he's itching to make a third line up there. The guys on the bottom, though, they need to do a better job at kind of arcing the corner a little bit. You see Lucas Santos on the bottom. He started to come up. If you reference the seams, he's starting to come up to arc it a little bit.
Yep.
It's not necessarily maybe the wear on the tires, but they get hot. And when they get hot, they don't stick. So you see him, he's kind of trying to arc it a little bit, kind of try to widen that corner out.
Yeah, right now all his entries are pretty shallow at the moment.
He's going to need to come up. If that's me down there, I'm going to try to.
Molina's not giving him. He comes up a little bit. Molina's going to give him room. That's gracious of him because Molina doesn't need to do that.
No, but we've talked about this how many times, right? They almost touch. Is that netcode multiplies with speed?
We're right in that zone.
In a game built for stock, in a sim built for stock cars, where they top out at maybe 205 at the end of the front straight here. 217, 218. When we're in IR18, 230. You get netcode Harry down here in the one especially.
And we do want to tell the stock car drivers that there is no side draft on these things.
Well, there is, but there isn't.
Right.
So there is, but it's not what guys like Chris Lewis are going to be used to. So when you talk about side draft in an IndyCar, whether it be a 5, a 12, or an 18, it's a very narrow window right next to the right rear tire. And it's only, you're talking about a 3 square foot box where you can lay air on that rear wing on that position.
Gotcha. So it looks like as we looking at, there's a bit of a pack in the back led by a 4-door Doshinko. Matteo Week, excuse me, I hope I'm saying that right, and Jonathan Diggs. They and 2 of them are of that TI Racing crew. So it looks like the TI Racing crew is sending 2 to the front to be the rabbits, and 2 to the back to kind of split strategies here. Either that they lost the draft, which is easy to do in these cars. The draft envelope in these cars do not extend as far back as the IR18 or even the DW12. You have to be right on that car in front of you to be in the draft.
Well, that Diggs is 3 laps down, so something's happened to him. But when I look at Theodore,
showing him with a 53.5 second pit stop, so he might have had a. I think coming down the pit road, there's some sort of speeding and probably plus fixing a wing, I'm guessing.
That's most likely.
The 40-second hold and then the pit stop and then a wing, something like that. He was on pit road for 1:21, so something did happen to him early on. But these other 2 cars, Doshinko and Weeks, are just kind of riding it and hanging out back here, conserving fuel. Meanwhile, back up front, Santos and Molina here, just kind of giving the lead back and forth. The old school kart IRL days. A second line. It's trying to come in. Mertz also involved here. Oh, Molina decides I want to the bottom, and I'm not sure how close we are to pit stops. In fact, I'm not even sure what the series rules here on. Maybe you can check that for me. For the tire limits and fuel.
Asked the question on tire limits. Nobody responded. Could not find the rule book.
It should be in the rules. Under if you go to the bring up the iRacing overlay and check the rules. It should stay in there how much fuel and what the tire limits are, if there are any. If there are not any tire limits, it won't say anything, so therefore there probably are none. Julian getting the position here, up to 4th for Julian.
So it's typical for VOR, we're at 75% fuel, so 14.8, excuse me, gallons in the car, and they do have a five set limit for tires. So that would translate, those of you at home, probably anywhere from somewhere around 35 to 40 laps on gas, and they're going to take tires just because the fuel takes that long anyway. I don't think they'll need them. I think you might see somebody at the end take a splash and go if it comes to that. But you're there, you might as well take them.
So what are we thinking? About a 4-stop race, probably? If they got 5 sets of tires, so they got 4 in the pits. It's probably setting up for a 4-stop race, then maybe a 3-stop race with an extra set.
3 or 4. Here comes Strauss down a bit. So we may be already starting here.
Strauss in one of the slides through. Gets up on the jack, though. He's on one of those. I believe that is the Venom energy drink. I believe that's an Andretti throwback. Is that Marco?
Yes, that if it's the Venom car, it would be Marco Andretti, as we see Matthias come out of the pit lane.
A bunch of people coming down pit lane now. Julian staying out. Bybel staying out. But the rest of the world coming down, and we got cars all over the place on pit road.
We got a car spinning down. We got cars spinning down pit lane. We had Strauss spinning off a pit lane. See if we can't figure out.
Yeah, see what happened.
Oh my god! Well, so the entire field is going to come down and try to pit here, and that's where trouble begins.
Edson Santos on the outside of all these cars. He makes big gains on the outside. Whoa! Liam O'Sullivan. I wonder if he's going to. Oh, we got contact with that's Collie. Then we had Seb Kinder, and I'll just all over the place. So
I can tell you how all this started.
Go ahead.
John Silva in the 41. If you look at the outside, John Silva is, I don't know, 8th, 9th, 10th in line. Everybody starts coming, and I think he didn't get the memo until late, because he didn't slow down until really into the grass there. So he's way late. He's hot. He can't get down on the inside because he's got the 44 of John Christensen there. Slides it through the grass, more or less spins through the grass, hits the cone, hits the barrels, and then calamity ensued behind him because I think people were anticipating a much larger accident.
Hey, 34, 33, that's where a lot of people stopped. So we're looking at about 66, 65 for the next stop. Now the field is spread out. The field is very spread out. Your leader is back to being Santos. Jonas Weber right behind him, P2. Cedric Holblum leading this group of 4 cars on the high side with Mertz, Christensen, and Lewis. Now, Lewis is just out of draft lane range, but Christensen is with this lead group here. I believe intermixed with Holblum, Mertz, Bybel, and Christensen. Okay, that's what I was looking for. Who's the other car? So we got 2 VOR cars in there that are probably working together. And then what we got back here is Chris Lewis badly needs a dancing partner. He is probably out of the draft window to the cars in front of him. The draft window of the IR18 extends about a second and a half. He's 1.3 with the IR05. IR05, you got to be really within a half second or so to really be getting the benefits of the draft. Alexander Bonney with a good run, and he has worked his way 10 spots up to 8th. Go right ahead.
Well, so I was going to say, we got a yellow. Let's see what we got
Bill
here.
Cawley. Well, I think Bill Cawley went to pit road. We'll see. I wonder maybe he had a hardware failure or something. He goes up to the top of the track, down to the apron.
Just stops, yeah. That's almost like a wheel disconnect or something like that, Gary, where he just he pulled it down there and parked it. You see he's not really under control there, so that's likely what that is.
And here is our leader coming up to the pace car. So, wow, that could have happened a couple laps earlier. Would have been perfect for every car on the wall. Weber.
Whoa, we're wrecking
Mertz.
under yellow, Gary.
Yeah, we're wrecking under yellow. Mertz and Weber and by Bell. Is that Christensen? Christensen. So, did we not pay attention to what's going on? The brakes on these things are not the greatest, I will admit.
Okay, so I'm looking at Jonas Weber. Oh, wow. So, Holbloom in the 10, I believe. That's Cedric in the 10, right? Is just gonna run directly in the back of poor Jonas Weber. Just straight into the back of him. And you're right. The brakes on these cars are not great. If memory serves, they're steel on steel.
Oof.
Yeah,
you got to be watching.
Jonas.
Even under caution, you got to be watching down the road. Even pick another line if you have to under caution to avoid situations like that. But Jonas Weber, I mean, poor guy. Just innocent bystander.
Run along second and gets booted under yellow.
Everyone stops. A number of people have stopped again. Let's see who stopped here. The first 5 stayed out. Everyone behind them pitted. So starting with Christensen, and then a number stayed out, I think. So let's reset the field. Let's reset the field while we're talking about it here. We've got Santos, the leader, Holbloom P2, Mertz P3, Bonnie P4, Dashinko. We have, this is Forador. He is P5. Pedro is P6. Chris Lewis P7. Weeks P8. Julian P9. Liam O'Sullivan is 10th. So let's talk about different strategies now.
Well, I don't think you're going to really gain much in terms of strategy.
Well, if a caution happens in that six lap period there.
Well, I don't go a lap down here typically, or you're going to be right at the edge of it. So, to me, the only thing that makes sense doing, Gary, is it puts you on a different lap to pit, so you avoid that gaggle of cars.
Julian taking a look. So, I mean, okay, so we just pitted not very long ago. Are we just, at this point, coming down and topping off tanks then and just trying to go a little bit longer than the next guy? Because with tire limits, you don't want to really throw on a new set and not and have tires this young.
I think so. I think you're more or less looking at just.
It's like Julian, Julian just stayed on. No jacks extended on Julian's car. Just came to top off the tank. Notice the pit rules here in the VOR League. You got to use that high-speed lane, otherwise you'll get penalized. Craig Forsyth, facepalm. We got Al in chat saying hi all. Hey everybody, how you doing? Chat, feel free to cheer out your favorite. We'll get him on camera. Lucas Santos is your leader, though. He is the first 5 are on a slightly different strategy now. First 4 now on a slightly different strategy. But we talked about it. It's still a little early. Might not really matter. But, anything different than the other guy gives you a possible edge.
And look, I mean, it could be something just as simple as, hey, I want to avoid pitting in that 20-car gaggle, and they all come down together. To me, that could be a reason.
Holbloom has a damaged nose. I don't know if he knows that or not. Lights are out on the pace car. We're going green this time by, and we are not assuming the up against the wall. So everyone is saying, okay, try to take me on the outside if you want.
Yeah, I don't know how experienced. I don't know how experienced some of these guys are. Lucas Santos bringing him down on the bottom there. I don't know how. We got a yellow. We got trouble in the back somewhere.
We got Molina is involved, one of the early leaders, and this might have been what we were talking about, bringing these cars up to speed. And I don't think he had help from behind.
It's going to start somewhere. It's going to start somewhere else. It's going to start with a 58. That's going to be Chris Lewis.
Well, let's take a look at from Lewis's point of view. I don't think it was contact. I think it was lighting the tires up. So let's go to Lewis's point of view.
So I called that wrong. That was Liam. If you go on board Liam O'Sullivan's car, you can hear it. Just lights the rear tires up and it turns right.
Yeah. And that's one of the things we were talking about in the pre-race. And there's another one that just everybody lighting these tires. You got to bring these cars gently up to speed, even with new or old tires. It really doesn't matter. You just can't mash it like you can with the 12 or the IR18. We were talking about that power band that you were talking about in the pre-race show. And explain that one more time.
So every racing car in your road car has a very specific set of RPMs where it will make maximum power. In these cars, nominally powered by Honda, Chevrolet, or Toyota at this point, are purebred racing V8s, 3.5 liters in displacement. They have very narrow power bands, and by that I mean they made roughly 700 horsepower, but all 700 of those horsepowers were only available within about a 500 RPM range. And so imagine, if you will, imagine, Gary, if you were in an old turbocharged sports car, like an old RSS Escort RS, or one of the Shelby Omnis, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Where you would have no power, and all of a sudden the boost gauge would go positive and would go.
Mm-hmm.
These things do that. They don't want to go, but then they go all of a sudden, and when they go all of a sudden, they go. And it's very difficult on starts and restarts in particular. Very hard to get out of your pit box sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You'll see guys. We saw Matthias Strauss, who's a very experienced driver in these cars. He spun coming off a pit lane because it kind of lugs getting up there.
Yeah, and you smack that button, you turn that button off, and you're most of the time your foot to the floor, right? When you got the button on, and then as soon as you disengage the button, it will light the back end up. And we see John Christensen here without a front end. He'll need to pit. Liam O'Sullivan, somehow cars snapped back together, transformer style. So he's wiggling the front end, trying to see, is this thing really as together as it looks? Well, we might have to find out. We do a restart, and he sends it into turn one a lap later at full speed. So we'll see. 43 of 150. Thanks, everybody, for watching here on this Sunday afternoon. Tomorrow, Mark and I have ISRA trucks from Kentucky. That's tomorrow night. Hope everyone is up to speed. They watched the NTT IndyCar Series earlier today from St. Pete. Joseph Newgarden, the winner there. If I just spoiled it for you, I'm very sorry. You should watch it beforehand. Hey, you know what now? With that win, Jay New passes Rick Mears on the all-time wins list.
Yeah, and I can't remember who I was talking with this about the other day. We're seeing some of the greatest IndyCar drivers of all time race today.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Dixon is going to go down.
Will Power.
Dixon, Will Power, Joseph Newgarden.
Yep.
Those guys are going to go down among the all-time greats.
Well, next up for Jay New on the all-time wins list, and he'll crack into the top 10. He will tie next with another win. Elio Castroneves, and we know Castroneves, the next win he gets is always going to be an Indy 500 because he's only doing part-time Indy-only programs for the foreseeable future. But, he's cracking rarefied air as soon as he gets into that top 10, and it's hard to believe. He has not been around that long, and he's already up into the top 11 now in all-time wins list. But we're getting ready to go green again. Thanks for joining us. Do us a solid. Support us by smashing the thumbs up button. Support us by subscribing to the channel, clicking the bell. We got a lot of other iRacing IndyCar races coming up. Going green. Let's see if we do not repeat from past sins. Lucas Santos bringing us up to speed. Santos, Holbloom, and Bonnie, your top three. And John Christensen. I don't think John Christensen knows he doesn't have a front wing.
No, but there was a really slow start in the middle of the pack, somewhere around Fyodor in there, where there was a line of cars that did not go on the restart. And again, a product of them all bringing themselves down on the bottom. Somebody, I don't know who it was because I'm looking on the blimp view, but somebody just drove around about 10 cars on the
island. Yeah, and that was Liam O'Sullivan. And he just might have got the Tony Kanaan restart here. But let's see if he has the fallback, if he got a black flag, because the green has to be out before you start passing cars, and I don't know if the green was out. He got the jump. And what that did is it's also separated the pack.
Well, whoever it was, Fyodor there, didn't go. Didn't go on green. And so Liam,
what is up with Christensen? And does he have a front wing on your screen? He does not have one on mine.
He does not have one on my screen, and he's hanging in there, I guess. I mean, I don't know.
I guess when the good of these tires run off and he makes this turn down and it just doesn't want to go anymore, but wow. No meatball or anything. I would suspect someone would be telling them that you don't have a front wing.
Well, if it was real life, you'd feel the air on it.
Yeah, no kidding. That is air conditioning directly to your toesies.
There's a bulkhead there. So, if you don't know this about these cars, there's a bulkhead there between. So the driver's feet have to be behind an imaginary line.
Yeah.
That's drawn on the front axle, and there's a bulkhead.
Oh,
there.
Gosh, Christensen floats up almost into Chris Lewis. Let's go to the. I mean, on the roll bar, you look, but he's another 6 inches lower. He might not be able to see. If you race in VR, you can sit forward and look up and see that you don't have wings or have wing damage. He might not be able to see that. But we have a heck of a battle up ahead, trying to get who is that.
Let's see. That's it's going to be.
We're trying to learn names and
Kinder, Sullivan, and Lewis, just in front of John. Then you've got Winiger.
That's Salvazzi. Salvazzi's a lap down. He's the first car a lap down, so he's leading this group. We know Salvazzi's fast. He was one of the top 10 qualifiers. But we have a whole host of cars that really want to get around him, that see the front pack getting away. So Liam O'Sullivan back down to 17th. Either he gave the positions back or he's more damaged than he thinks.
Well, and something else that you kind of mentioned with John Christensen there, Gary, in the IR18 and the DW12, you can see the edges of the front wings from the cockpit. These cars you cannot. He doesn't know.
Al from chat, a little less downforce, a little bit more top end speed. Yeah, possibly.
Or front tire wear, definitely. Somebody that's in this group with Salvasi is John Silva, and so Salvasi and Silva are one lap down. That is for position.
Yeah,
those guys do not have to give.
No, they don't.
Best.
No, they are racing for position.
Not only that, Gary. But when's the last time John Silva gave best to anybody? For any reason. He's one of the most aggressive drivers in the community, and he's going to race you hard. It doesn't matter if it's for 10th, 20th, 30th, 45th, or the hot dog stand.
The Club was Brazil guys. They come to race.
Not just that. I mean, he's just very hard-nosed, very fair most of the time, but he will race you hard every step of the way, and the guys behind him, the lap cars behind him, they're 2x2x2. Those guys don't have to give up to them because they're racing for position. Why would they? He dogs something that Julian does with this series that need to be mentioned. So if you're a lap down, you're not necessarily out of this. Jonathan Diggs was 3 laps down. We mentioned that earlier. We kind of talked about that. Johnny Diggs up to 20th, 1 lap off the pace. If he's able to get another caution, he might be right back in this thing, Gary.
And Molina did a little bit of a blinking out there. It looks like Christensen has kind of fallen back now.
Yeah, and look, it may benefit him to do this. A nose change is only 5 seconds, I think. They do that within tires and fuel anyway normally. So
yeah, that's about the penalty time for a wing change, yeah.
Keep it out there. Don't lose so much time. It might be okay. waste a set of tires, but man, how can he not know? He has to be driving like a dump truck.
So,
See our good.
man, one of the engineers in chat, good friend Craig, says needs to get to lap 57, 8-ish to stay on the same pit cycle.
Yeah, well, he's got 4 more to go, 5 more to go. Just right in there, and good for him. Liam O'Sullivan, that paint scheme, the National Guard, this car, it's worth mentioning. The driver of that
so
car,
close, so close to an Indy 500 win in that car.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm thinking about the previous driver of that car.
Well, that's I believe he's a Weldon fan because he did race in the when we had the DW12 Indy race last week. He was in the William Rast, but it was painted on a DW12, so he might be a bit of a Weldon fan. But Weldon drove that car to a number of great finishes with an underperforming Panther Racing team in the Indy 500. But the year that he won the last Indy 500, and unfortunately that was the year he also had that accident. He perished at Vegas later in the season. He was in that William Rast car, and that's what J.R. Hildebrandt was running when he took the white flag.
Yeah, and Weldon drove past his former ride as it was crashing. I always found it curious that they didn't throw the yellow until Weldon had made the pass from the lead. Had they thrown the yellow first,
that would have locked in. Frozen. Yeah, it would have locked the field.
The crash, if you go back and watch the video, the crash was ongoing as Dan crossed the line. By the way, it goes down as one of the best 3-year stretches. Ooh, awful close between Salvasi and John Silva there. Goes down as one of the best 3-year stretches of any driver, the Indianapolis 500. And Patrick Salvasi says, I want no part of this. He goes to the back.
Yeah, Ted Horn still has one of the best stretches for anyone who never won. But for someone who did win, I believe that goes down as one of the best 3 or 4 year stretches that anyone's ever had at the 500. And if I just mentioned a name you have not heard about, 3 wide going into turn 3 here between a number of these cars, please go read up on Ted Horn. This guy all but won everything but the Indy 500 in the early AAA days of IndyCar racing. And I believe he's forgotten about, and I believe he should belong on IndyCar's Mount Rushmore, right there with Foyt and right there with Mario Andretti.
Yeah, Ted Horn, great racer out of the Boyle stable, which is a whole nother interesting can of worms. If you want to look up the Boyle Maserati team and the origins of their money. Speaking of interesting, Edson Santos trying to bring it back to the front of this crew. Those boys have been looking 3 wide. They've got Silva leading this train now. I can't help but think that they might want to get around him and get a lead lap car out in front of this thing.
Yeah, they need to get organized. They need to get organized quickly, and everyone's wanting to race. Meanwhile, up front, the other Santos, we got Lucas Santos still the leader. We got Alexander Bonney has moved up to P2 on the high side. Oh, wow, he pushed out majorly to wall. Wasn't sure what happened there, but he's got a big run down the backstretch based upon running the high side. He's checking out that cushion up there a little bit right now. But Bonney to P2, Holbroom P3, Bybel P4, and there's a top 3 group, and then there's this group led by Bybel, Mertz, Altena, Weeks, and Karsala. And Karsala up 9 spots, and they're starting to gain on this group a little bit.
Well, and they do need to get organized because they're teetering. They're 5-6 tenths behind. Once you get in these cars, once you get to about a half a second out, you can still feel the draft, but the dirty air is horrendous. Once you break inside 5 tenths, you almost don't feel it. So half a second is kind of the bubble, if you will. In the newer cars, bubble is much smaller. In these cars, it's about half a second here where
you call it the bubble, I call it the envelope, but yeah, it's just where you could start to feel the pull of the draft from the car in front of you. And in theory, it should be about the same about the same size as the DW12, if not a little bit smaller. But just as the horizontal air, not the horizontal, the vertical hole in the air these things punch is huge compared to what the 18s or the 12s, because they're much lower and slung lower. The 12s are wide.
Just look at the size of the rear wing. I mean, these things were at Michigan and they're running triple element rear wings. Now, when we come to Michigan, we've got a little bitty blade.
2/10. But this second group has caught him. Bybel has cut it to 2/10 from 5/10 to 2/10, and he's got a little help behind him with Zach Mertz, who is doing a little bit of that pushing from behind that we found out is going to work with these cars. 99 degrees track temperature.
Gary, the other thing is, from Bybel on back, those guys have 6 laps tires than do the front 3. And we also know that Cedric Holblum does have a little bit of damage on the nose of that 10 machine. And so, he may, well, he may not have come in, he didn't come in and change it, of course. But, who knows? If it's crooked, it's still producing some downforce, maybe.
Looking at the back, Holblum doesn't have that damage on his wing anymore. So either he got it changed, or iRacing physics took over once more.
Just like it did with Liam Sullivan. These cars are older, supposedly new damage model. Okay, right? How much did they update? You know what I mean?
I'm thankful to iRacing anytime they want to pull one of the legacy Indy cars out and make an update to it. I'm completely thankful. And thank you very much, iRacing, for doing it. Now, the next thing you can do is make the tools available to us on Fixed Setup. If you could swing that, that'd be awesome. And extend extend the draft envelope or the draft bubble back about a half second. That'd be awesome as well.
Also, if you could go down to Ganassi's shop, if we're asking favors to iRacing, go down to Ganassi's shop in Indianapolis. There's a 96 Reynard Honda in our Scan that. We're asking for favors.
I bet if they asked the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, with, of course, they're closed for the next 2 years, the museum. I bet if iRacing asked the Speedway, can we scan one of your cars, they would absolutely 100% allow them. And I think that's only in IndyCars and in Speedway's best interest to allow that level X. I would love to see a 95 Renard Firestone Honda. I mean, that was the package. That was the combination to have in the mid 90s. Even though it was a 2000 car that set the world speed record, the 95. If you played IndyCar Racing 1 or 2 back in the day, especially IndyCar Racing 2, if you weren't driving a Renard Honda Firestone shod car, you were just you weren't winning in that game very often.
No, and that package that Penske put together, where he had Penske cars redo the underwing on that Renard, just made that thing ridiculous. People forget DeFerrin set that world close course record, a Hanford device on the thing.
In 2000, yes.
That car had a parachute on the back of it and still went 240 miles an hour.
Oh, getting down to the apron. We got people pitting. Bonnie's one of them is going to pit. To NBC's credit, they did make mention of Jill's passing in that broadcast today and said some nice words about him. So, of course, that happened in the off season. Today was the kickoff for the NTT IndyCar 2024 season. We see Christensen on pit road, so he's out of the car. So I'm wondering if they just knew that was a terminal damage, and that was once he stopped, it was going to be day done. So he just rode it to the end of his stint. It looks like Bonnie out. Holblum out.
They come. It looks to me like Cedric is going to get the drop on him off of pit lane. He's going to come out. Now, this could be a huge advantage for him if he can come out and get behind that lead draft right there.
Get that draft. You're right.
He is going to come out of this smelling like a rose, because if he can get that draft and he can keep up with that group in front of him, he is going to pull a huge gap over Lucas Santos. It's 2 seconds right now, but if he can get out there and pull that gap, he's going to be the winner of the race at this point. And I'll call that
right at the halfway point, though. Thanks for joining us. This is round 1 for the VOR IR05 series, coming to you from Michigan. We got 300 miles scheduled today, 150 laps. Your leader right now, as pit stops are occurring, is Pedro Bibel. His teammate right behind him, the host with the most, Julian Altina. And Matthias Weeks is currently P3 with his teammate Zachary Mertz right behind him. We're expecting pit stops from this group momentarily. They stopped on a slightly different lap number last time, so they're going to go a little bit further. There's Sam Casala. He's part of this group, up 12 spots. Weeks up 12 spots. Mertz up 10 spots, showing their prowess. And you mentioned it, there is Holbloom. Even though he's a lap down, and that's because of the pit stops, he is catching this group. He is 4/10 now away, and he is starting to catch them. And once he gets into that draft, that's just going to help him, because the next car behind him is Lucas Santos. He needs a half a straightaway behind.
He was there. So when they came out of the pits, Lucas Santos was 2 seconds behind Cedric. Now it's 2.7. And Cedric came out right within that bubble. He was about 6/10 behind. He has stayed at, well, now he's caught Sam Carasella, but he was about 6/10 behind, and he is pulling anywhere between 2 and 3/10 a second lap.
There they all go. Pedro Bibel. Julian stays out, so Julian is saved a little bit.
Now, Julian saved a little bit. Now, how much is that going to help Cedric some more? Because every lap he can run behind another car here, Gary.
Lovern and Kinder dropped out. Something happened to Gary Lovern and Kinder.
See if I can go back and find that. Meanwhile,
here's Lovern and Kinder coming on the pit road. And they hit each other. And they got DQ'd.
Ah.
They reached the incident limit. And that poor Lovern, that's not even his fault. It's Kinder hit him.
Oh, and it's a 14x limit. So
Julian on pit road. Julian on pit road.
He is. Now I'm going to be interested to see where Julian comes out.
Number of other cars on pit road. Watch this pit cycle go through, see who picks up the Daryl Weininger is also on pit road. He picked up the lead momentarily. Molina on pit road. Here come the fast ones. Julian's off. And Holbloom, I think Julian might have Holbloom got him.
Holbloom got him, and he's going to be out of the draft envelope. 1.1 to still losing time, 0.3. Cedric is all alone. He's done it, so he's broken the draft. Here's something else to keep in mind. You know, we talked about the gearing limitations and how draggy the car was and kind of where it topped out. The slingshot that you see us do in the modern cars, you can't do that in these. Just the limitations of power and drag. There is no slingshot, so you really have a hard time eating up the guy in front of you. Very hard. If anybody can do it, it's Julian. He's very experienced, but 0.6 seconds in a track that you don't lift is going to be a tall order. The thing is, Cedric's got some help in the form of Liam O'Sullivan, and Liam is very fast as well, too.
There we see him sneak on by in the suspension cam. Oh yeah, look at Liam O'Sullivan's hands on his steering wheel when he goes down the straight. We'll stick with him here. He has a very ill-handling car, and he just blinked out. But let's watch his hands. Look at on the front straight. Look how much right turn input he's putting into this thing.
Yeah, if you want to do that on your steering wheel at home, and he's holding it straight through the corners as if he's going straight. And he's about at 45 degrees to the right.
Yeah.
Go straight. Is an evil handle.
So yeah, he has some bad damage on that car from the incident. So that is why he's a little off the pace. We knew that we saw him snap into place, but we were wondering how that happened without no damage occurring. Well, there's the damage. The alignment is shot on that car. He's just trying to bring it home to the finish now. Let's get back up front. There is Holbloom getting around. He is your leader. Julian is P2 Weeks P3. This is a battle for third right here. Weeks, Bybel, Altena. This is a battle actually for P2 when you think about it. They're all getting together here. Asheville Rooftop Bar Tours. Of course, they sponsored me in my one and only full distance Daytona 500 I did.
Oh, it may seem to be kind of a footnote in this race, but Liam O'Sullivan falling back like that was a gift. Was a gift for Julian and that crew, because they were able to use his draft. They picked up almost a full second out of that deal.
Well, yeah, and I mean, even though O'Sullivan is, crippled in terms of his handling of the car, he's still poking a void in the air that these guys can follow in and really rock it. And that's exactly what happened. And they're going to, if they stay in line, and I think these three will, they're going to run down Holboom.
And they're going to be there in a couple of laps.
5 tenths right now, 4 tenths, Julian. You get to 3 tenths on the backstretch. There's 3 tenths. Probably by the end of the backstretch, you'll have it to 2 tenths. There's 2 tenths already. I sound like I'm doing an auction. Give me two. Get one. He's right there, dead heat. We got a winner or not yet?
Give you something else is that P2 and P4 teammates.
Yeah, that's going to help.
Julian's going to waste no time. Going to go to the outside of Cedric Holboom here.
Does Bybel come out with Julian? He's going high.
He's looking to do it. He wasn't close enough there. Here's the other thing.
Julian to the lead.
You got a lot of experience in that number 11. Not much experience in the number 10.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't really know what Cedric and Matthias. I'm willing to bet Weeks probably has a lot of stock car experience, and we know Bybel has a lot of sports car experience. But when it comes to running these cars, and we're talking Indy cars, whether it be the IR05, the DW12, and the IR18, this group maybe lucky to have the combined starts that are a quarter of what Julian has. Julian, pretty much, this is what he races all the time. We kind of come back and talked about it before when we talked about the Jesper Ormans of the world and yourself and some of these. When we watched them in this high split strength of field, they might have had like a low car number or a high car number, excuse me. So let's say we watch a strength of field race and an IndyCar guy that runs regularly might have a car number in the 20s, but then we'll see someone on let's say it's a road race, right? And then we'll see one of the road ringers come in and they'll have the number 1 on, but we don't recognize their name. We don't see them in very many of the top split broadcasts. The IndyCar driver always seems, the regular everyday IndyCar driver, that's all I run, nothing else, seems to always come out on top of those particular races because they are so more used to the car than someone that just jumps in and kind of does a potpourri of cars on the iRacing service, which you could do, and that's okay. But those that specialize in a certain car, you get those reps in, and those reps matter.
It's kind of funny, you talk about that. These races, Michigan and California especially, are very much like chess matches, where not really going to be able to get off of the guy in front of you or the guy behind you, but without a great pit stop like Cedric just had, you're never gonna pull away. And even if you do pull away, there's always going to be usually something transpire to bring the field back to you, whether it be a caution or a lapper or something that brings the field back to you. You're never going to quite get away. And so it's much more about...
These two need to get in line. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Keep talking. These guys in 5th and 6th, you got to get in line. They're hemorrhaging time at the moment.
They are. But that's an experience thing, okay? Alexander Bonney, Lucas Santos, those are not names that I recognize, right? And I'm one of those guys, I run these cars every day. If that was Jesper and I, we would be in line nose to tail. Whomever it was, be it me or him, would be in line nose to tail, not racing. Guy in front would be glued to the white line all the way around the course, trying to make up maximum time.
Molina, that group is actually gaining on these two because they're racing too much.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
It's
right?
down to
So-
2 seconds now. It was 2.1 at the start of the back straight. Now 2 seconds, while Santos and Bonnie are now 2 seconds behind the lead four. They were at one point a second and a half behind, and they continue to hemorrhage time. They need to really get in line and start working with each other. Otherwise, this second group is going to come up on them, or this third group, rather, going to come up on them, join them, and then pass them while they're still busy racing.
Yeah, and it's just not conducive to what they need to be doing, and that's the chess piece of this, because the racer in you always wants to pass the guy in front. You know that, Gary. The racer always wants to pass the guy in front. Well, in truth, there are times where you want to lay back and just sit there and run behind him. Josh Tucker and I talk about that all the time, where Julian's doing a great job right here of just controlling this race. It's not so much leading it as he and Pedro are controlling it. You see how they're kind of varying their lines a little bit.
Yeah.
They're up in that second groove a little bit, not scrubbing so much speed. They're controlling P3 and P4, so P3 and P4 can't get around them or build a run to get around them.
So Futuristic in chats, I think that's Seb. I think that's Seb's handle on YouTube. It was flat in the last row, in the last row of the pack, no dirty air at all. Okay, interesting.
So we're speaking purely when we talk about the bubble then of the aero effects in terms of the draft. There's that bubble, and Julian had said that there's feel it from about a second out, but then it's really hard to crack that half a second bubble. It's kind of what I remember.
I'm kind of we were kind of joking that when you were testing that you got in pack racing and you found it hard to separate, and we thought for sure we would see a pack race and then a caution and then everyone would stay together relatively through the whole. We've gone through 2 green flag pit cycles.
That's the only way to break the field up
Yeah.
is through green flag pit stops.
These guys are doing a really, really good job. I'm going to give credit to all these drivers. There could have been a number of incidents where they could have really bended up and wadded these things whole, and they are playing very well with others. Still, I just gave it the broadcaster jinx, though. We're coming up to 50 to go here soon, 7 to lap 100. We'll see what happens. We still got a couple more stops to go, too. If we're looking at the guys that stopped on 76, which is Julian here, they're 17 laps into their current stint. They went 36 on their previous stint. So do the math, and that's going to be near 100 or so. 110.
So right on the precipice, depending on how much they save.
Of going on the last stop. It'll be the last stop. Going to distance.
And I still cannot believe Santos and Bonnie have not figured out they've got to stay in line. There would, and I have mine muted, but there would be large amounts of terse words on the radio if I was the guy in the front of that. Like, hey, they're because they are absolutely.
Second group 1.3, losing ground now. Santos and Boney now might have figured it out. They might also look at their relative and go, you know what? That second group is catching us. We need to get racing. But it might be Santos is the one that's seen that, and maybe he's just Bonnie wants to lead and not push. Maybe Bonnie is a better leader and less of a pusher. I for one do not like to get close to the car in front of me, so I would have it very difficult to be a pusher in this situation, and especially knowing that netcode is always the lingering specter of all this. I don't think I would want to cause a netcode issue either.
And in the practice session, the other thing was there were guys that were practicing the kind of Sats bump draft that Rafi was talking about. There were guys that were practicing that, and so maybe again I don't know, but maybe one or the other has decided, made a call on radio and said, hey, I can do this, or maybe they're in Discord together. Hey, I can bump you.
Number of drivers in this third group back here going, we need a caution. I wish for a caution. Just I don't want to be part of that caution, but they want a caution to bring this field closer together for an all-out sprint for the final 50 laps of this 300-miler here at Michigan.
And we're getting down to it. We're kind of logging laps right now. I think front four for sure are content where they are. Santos and Bonnie probably content where they are. If they like to be up in that front pack, but they're not sweating it. If you're in that third pack, you're wanting a yellow. If we get that yellow, Gary, it's going to get wild.
Yep. Bonnie and Santos has got it down to now just about 2 seconds, so they are starting to reel in that group now. They're showing the discipline and staying in line.
Well, and you don't know how much, Julian obviously can do the math. He knows that he might be a couple 3 laps short of being able to do this whole thing on one more stop. And so, Julian's running around right now at 2:17. He's a little bit off the pace. It wouldn't surprise me to know that wouldn't surprise me if that
everybody's in the 33.1s back to P10.
Well, right, but it wouldn't surprise me if that 11 car wasn't rolling out of the throttle ever so slightly every so often.
We can ride along with them here in a second to find that out. We expect at least the leaders will be pitting right around 112, give or take. Let's ride with Julian and let's listen to throttle control here, number 11, Delara. Rolls out of it a little bit just to stay off that limiter. And when you say the chip, that's what we're talking about, the limiter. That's electronically limited engine revs.
Let's see if he does it here. Yeah, see if you're looking at the speed, Gary, see how limiter is at 219. Just watching him go down a front straight, he stayed at 217 and didn't climb above it. So he's definitely park throttling down.
217, 218, 219 at the back, 220, 221, just touched 221.
But now watch him along the front. He did it last time. Watch him on the front. He held a constant speed.
216, 216, 217, 217, 218. So it looks like 220. Looks like he has the front stretch in thirds, where he just over the period of that third he gains a mile an hour.
Yeah, and when I was running practice laps, I could get to the chip by the start and finish line. Really hogging it. So he's definitely saving some. How much he's saving and how effective that is, who knows?
Ooh, Julian blinking there.
And we got Cedric on pit road. Not unsurprising. He was one of the early adopters last time.
He must think he can go to the distance. He did 32 laps this stint, did 37 the last one.
Yeah, you're going to be a little bit short.
Oh, and he overshot his pit stall, so he had to back up. That's going to cost him some time.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Julian stopped at 76, so we expect him in probably
about the next 10 laps or so, give or take, is what I suspect, about 112. See that little wiggle? That's the back end lighting up when he come off the button.
Yup. Very, very astute.
And he wants to get up to speed very quickly to get with this group and tuck in with them. This whole group has the pit, though. He's going to tuck behind one of the TI cars. He's clear, so he's going to tuck right in there. Will be right in front of the 15, I believe.
Oh. Just wonder how much of a balloon foot is Julian playing out here. I mentioned the road course here earlier, I believe, at the top of the broadcast. So you can kind of see it in the background. Used to open the gate in the back on the backstretch, so it would go out of the oval and come back in. And then if you look down in turn 1, you get the shot, Gary. If you look down in turn 1, just where you would go into the infield at Daytona, you can see the left go into the infield. Oh, those painted lines. That's about all that's left, I think. But they definitely did not scan a road course here, and there's nothing left in the infield of it anyway. But that's where it went. And if you look it up on Wikipedia, Julian's coming in now.
Yep. He made the move to stay low, and he is going to make his final stop. Need to get down to the limit. Control, control, control. Down to the limit on the button. Very good. No locking the brakes or anything. This will be his final stop to take him home. Maybe not. This is going to be a long haul. This is going to be a very long haul. We might see a splash at the end if this stays green.
We're seeing splashes at the end for sure. Coming
to a spot. Doesn't overrun it. Up on the jacks. New set of Firehawks. Full tank of fuel. Down and away. On the button. Watch the wheel spin. Watch the wheel spin. Now you're going to come off the button right here. And listen how smoothly he comes back up to speed.
Something that you could do if it was enabled was you can, a lot of guys will put the weight jacker down to -20.
Yeah.
Get off the pit road.
Yep. I would do that at Indianapolis.
You can also make the front bar full stiff and the rear bar full soft. Try to get some compliance.
Julian's all by himself. Pedro Bibel on pit road. Darrell Wanger on pit road. Matthias Weeks on pit road. Molina also coming off of pit road. We will see where Julian pops out. Here he comes. He's picking up one spot. Picking up two spots.
He's going to get by Weeks.
He's going to pick up a third spot.
He's back to the effective lead.
And he's trying to break the draft already. He ducks to the inside. Trying to break the draft at full speed. Weeks still coming up to speed. Julian makes the jump, or made a bit of a gain there. He was already the leader when he came to pit road, so he has put some space between himself and P2 now. Yet another green flag pit stop. These guys are doing a great job. Don't want to jinx it. So it's Weeks P2 by Bell. He went ahead and made his last. Well, we think this is last stops, but I think people are going to have to go for a splash.
I'm fairly confident saying we're going to see a splash. One thing that they did do, Gary, was they dropped Cedar, and that's what slide through your pit box can do for you. He lost 2.5 seconds.
Yep, that'll do it.
One little thing. It doesn't seem like much. You slide in a little bit too hot. You roll past the tires there just by a foot or two, and you got to engage reverse. 2.5 seconds.
So everyone has stopped. Everyone has stopped. The longest has been Holbloom on 7. He's now 7 laps into the stint. Santos is 8 laps into the stint. Boney's 7 laps into his stint. Salvazzi 8 laps into their stint. So the guys further on back stopped a little bit earlier. For sure, those guys are going to have to stop again. The guys up front, we'll see. That's a lot to save fuel. I don't think they'll be able to make it. I think we're looking with a splash of gas here. If Julian goes at least 31 laps on the current lap count of 10, so he pitted on 107, and let's say he does another 31 lap stint. There'll be 138. So he actually, at 138, you're going to be getting enough fuel in the tank. So you might as well throw on that last set of tires as well, because it only takes 5 seconds to throw on a new set of tires.
Very true. Very true. And I was just thinking about that. If it's, you figure roughly a half a gallon a lap, it's going to need, what do we think, 12 laps of fuel?
Yeah.
It's going to need 6 seconds.
So he needs 12 laps, and might as well throw on a new set of tires while you're in that time frame. That's one of the nice things about IndyCar racing over NASCAR racing. Although the new car in NASCAR racing has a single impact lug, IndyCar has always had the single impact lug for the longest that I can think of, going back to the 70s even. I remember they used to have to take off tires with a hammer, hit that lug, but now they got the air guns, of course. But yeah, you could take off the tires and put on a new set well within 5 seconds if you're going to get more than 5 seconds worth of fuel. Might as well do it.
They used to have little knobs on the ends of the. It's like you hit them with a hammer.
Yeah, they look like little handles, like a knob that you would see like on a garden hose type thing, and they would hit it with a hammer to loosen it up, and then they would use their hand to take it off. Then they put on a new tire. Then they would hand tighten the lug and then use the hammer to tighten it more so the car could roll. But I mean, just think about that. If you don't hit it hard enough, you hit it wrong, anything, that tire could come off in the run, and that could potentially cause a crash and not be good for your driver. Man, look at Molina. He might as well be one car now with Holbloom, as he's so close underneath that rear attenuator.
Yes, he is. They're definitely doing the doing the bump drafting.
Transformer combiner wars going on here. One's the head, one's the torso.
I wanted to talk about tires and Indy cars. Here's one for you. So, back in the 60s, right when the rear engine cars first came out, he did not change tires in Indianapolis. It was the norm to run the entire race on one set. And so there is a situation that occurred at Indianapolis in 1964, and I think anybody who knows anything about IndyCar racing knows what I'm referencing, where you had the massive crash at the beginning and it claimed the life of Eddie Sachs and the lives of Sachs and McDonald. But one of the sidebars of that was Team Lotus was running Dunlop tires, and the Dunlops were not. They were not optimized for a hot summer day in Indianapolis, Indiana. So
and probably an oval as well.
Well, Jimmy Clark blistered a tire, which is what caused his suspension collapse, and Team Lotus, tired the healthy car of Dan Gurney over Gurney's objections because they could not change the tires. They didn't even have facility to change them. They were the hubs and wheels were one piece. The axles.
So our race engineer in chat says they're only going 30-35 for a stint, so they all have to splash. The IR05 does look good. Yes, it does take a little bit used to getting used to looking at, but it's a fun car to look at. It's not a bad car to drive, really. I think this race has shown that this is a much more strategic race than probably what most people thought was going to happen. Most people thought this was going to be a pack race and a lot of cautions, and it has been quite the opposite. And, of course, Craig is not a fan of the IR05. I believe he's going to quote what Paul Tracy said about these things.
And he would have, if anybody knows anything about what Paul Tracy thinks about cars, a guy with the last name of Forsyth would probably know. They are bump drafting those two, Holbloom and Molina.
Well, let's talk about that. We've seen, if they are bump drafting, if that's causing an X to be generated, we've already seen two cars get disqualified. Is that a danger you face here by possibly getting an X and getting up to your incident limit?
No. If you do it correctly, it should be a 0x. If you do it correctly, if it's a light enough touch, it's a 0x. I don't have an X, because we're in here as spectators, we don't have an X counter. I'm not privy to that information. But yeah, I mean, if you hit them hard enough, you can definitely generate an X with that. But they are definitely doing it. I'm watching Maximus. He is he is absolutely on the attenuator of Cedric Holbloom. The other thing that's going to do is it's going to make the car of Cedric Holbloom very light.
Yeah.
So imagine, stock car, when you get bumped.
Battle for the lead up here. Weeks is tired of waiting. He's on the high side. Sorry, don't mean to cut you off. Libel might take it 3 wide, but I think he's going to stick with his teammate. But continue your thoughts. Go right ahead. Just wanted to show the action at the front here. That's going to allow those two that are racing that we just saw between Molina, and Holbloom probably catch these two. But continue your thoughts. Sorry.
Once again, the savior in all this is going to be Liam O'Sullivan. But if you watch Maximus, he's doing it exactly right. He's got the very needle point of this car. It's almost like aiming the gear indicator on his car into attenuator of Cedric, and that's giving him a nice shove along. It's also keeping Maximus off the limiter, but they are gaining loads and loads and loads of time.
Yeah, they're under a second now. Under a second. They should be probably next lap right there. Let's get the camera back on those two. We were just watching it go around O'Sullivan. Real quick, while we're watching this battle, once again, if you're just joining us, welcome to the series. Welcome to the channel. You're watching Race First coverage of Round 1 of the VOR IndyCar IR05 series coming to you from Michigan, where Julian Altena, the host with the most, is leading. He currently leads with just over 25 to go. Make sure to smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you have not done so. Ring the bell so don't miss out on the next race. We have lots of them. We have something like 87 races planned, now like 86 races planned between now and the middle of June.
Yeah, we're going to be here. We're going to be here covering IndyCars on iRacing. We missed a year, so we got to make up for
Yeah, got to make up for it, yeah.
Watching Cedric and Maximus close this gap, they're 9/10 to weeks. Not in that tight drafting posture any longer.
8/10. Now 8/10. They seem to be gaining on the turns 1 and 2 portion of the Speedway, making a little headway. 7/10 now, and then they lose a little bit in the turns 3 and 4. Oh, the gaining this time. 7/10.
It's the easier end to gain.
Yep.
It's turn 1. 1 and 2 is the easier end.
6/10.
A lot tighter.
They're going to be there in another lap or two.
I am so interested to see what happens when it comes to show and tell time in terms of this bump drafting. It kind of weirds me out to see it. And I have no doubt that if I was on the track, I'd be doing it.
I do not like being pushed either. I don't want to be touched at all. I don't want to be pushed, and I don't want to be pushing. And there they are, 6/10 to that group.
I can confirm that a Formula Renault 3.5 car does not bump draft because Chad Frankenfield tried to do it to me in the Freedom 100 about 3 years ago.
5/10.
I wound up in the inside.
Yeah, 4/10.
I wound up in the pit wall, and Chad and I had a discussion about his driving.
We have another set of drivers right behind them, Doshinko and Chris Lewis. They're trying the same thing, trying to run down this group. They might get there before the end. We'll see. Especially, we'll see if what Holbloom and Molina do.
We got Cedric on pit lane.
So Cedric, he went 20 laps on that stint. Cedric, no, 24 laps on that stint. So I think maybe he was separating the last 50 and 25 lap portions.
He's listening to the race engineer in chat. So that was the call from Craig in the chat that if you were hanging out around 6, you should gamble and splash now and then use the lead draft to pull them ahead before they pit. There you go. Where's Cedric going to come out? He's coming back out on the track now. Well, remember he would have needed more gas too. Might have needed.
He's down a lap, but we'll see where he's going to come out with these TI guys, which is probably good for him. He's going to get in the draft, come up to speed quickly, and then he needs to hope those TI guys stay out long because he'll need them to. They'll need those two to pull him along here, make that jump if he can.
There you go. I will note that Maximus Molina has gotten to the front group. He hasn't really tried to pull on by Pedro or Matthew. He's just kind of hanging out.
These guys are all on the identical strategy, 22 laps on their current stint. And what they're going to do is they'll probably all hit pit road all at the same time, pretty much. Maybe these guys in the back, Julian has been leading a good portion of the time. Julian's probably going to hit pit road first. These guys in the back might not. They might go longer and have a shorter fill. We'll see. Strategies are all over the place.
Oh.
But Craig, not surprised on Craig's call there. Craig is he tends to have the master strat always formulating in that mind of his. Very strategic.
I think I've been beaten by that devious mind.
I've seen a number of Forsyth wins here on Race First that have occurred with him. I seem to remember a race where he had everyone pretty well covered on pit strategy alone at Motegi and waxed the field So he knows what he's doing. He's constantly working the edges. And we're watching 4 right now working the program, riding along with Molina. Not sure when this group decides they're going to pit, but we suspect here not before it gets too late into this run.
Noting is that Weeks has separated the VOR teammates of Altena and Blebel, and you know, I don't know how confident Pedro is at the bump drafting thing, but that might be something worth mentioning. Is that, you know, Julian and Pedro have been separated, so no doubt Weeks and Julian may be friendly, but it's not a team car behind you anymore.
And our man Chris Lewis has the purple lap of a 32.9. Set that back earlier in the race. Give you an idea of what that is. 32.9. Chris Lewis there sitting in P6. That's a 2:18.3. Let's take a look at laps last time by miles per hour. 2:17 the lead group. Everyone in it, pretty much in the 2:17s for the most part.
About what this car will do. It's just terminal velocity after no draft. It's in Santos. He's signaling he's going to be coming in here.
We'll check out Santos here on the back stretch. They're in that leaner energy delivery car there. That team and his teammate were the champions of the DW12 series. Getting down. Very good. Very good. Car in front of him locked up. That was Daryl Weininger. I would say Weininger. Weininger, yeah. Daryl, if we're saying that wrong, let us know. Daryl Weininger getting on pit road, very good as well. He is going to get to his spot. Edson Santos has Bonnie to his inside. Bonnie now comes out. Okay. Good, clean pit exit. Oh, Santos misses the spots. Missed the spots.
And here comes Maximus Molina.
And Santos is not going with new tires. He's just going with fuel only. And he's going to beat out Weininger. Weininger has the penalty. He sped on pit road. So Santos did not go with tires. He went with fuel only.
We've got the leader on pit road. Julian is not taking. Julian is taking tires.
He's taking tires. He might as well. If you got to go more than 5 seconds in the box. And Julian 8.0.
Oh, so that's the minimum time.
Santos, with just fuel only, was 8.6, but he missed his spot. Ooh. We watched Molina twitched back in coming off the button. 7.9 on the box for him. Just slightly quicker than Julian's. Bell's still running. He saved a ton of fuel.
It's funny. We talked about the tires not really wearing. But what those new tires are going to do, it's not going to make you any faster, but it's going to make you more maneuverable. It gives you more options.
Yeah.
In the draft.
It's only to, I'd say, a benefit or an advantage to go ahead and get them taken care of. If you can get them changed in that time it takes for you to get what fuel you need to get to the finish. Remember, people, they're not filling the tanks at 100%. They're getting just enough fuel here to get to the finish. We got another one of the rooftop tour cars coming out.
Well, time stop, right?
Yeah.
Have the guy with a stopwatch beat the fueler with a stick.
Yeah, it's normally a big long stick, like a pointer that a teacher has in the old days before overheads and PowerPoint presentations.
You know what the beginning of that was, don't you?
I think that was a Team Penske thing.
Oh, it beat Team Penske. So the original time
was it during the 82 500?
It's 82. So Mears came in and took a full load of fuel when he didn't have to. John Cock did the time stop, and if you watch the video of John Cock's last stop, you'll see Patrick lean over the pit wall.
He smacks him with the stick, yeah. That last pit stop, though, was not good for Mears, though. Mears, I think, hit a car on pit road that was coming down to pit. Was it Sneva, maybe? I can't remember. And then, of course, he fills the car up when he doesn't have to, and Patrick gets one over on Penske.
Yeah, it was a yardstick. Leans over the pit wall and hits a guy on the shoulder with a yardstick. They knew they needed X amount of seconds of fuel, and that won the race. Mears had the superior car.
Car spinning on pit road.
That's not going to bring out a caution, or it should.
That's forward door, and that's not what he wants. He needs to get another way because a teammate with him
is not. Blebel on pit road.
Here's Pedro. So it's going to turn back over to Julian. 10 laps to go. And we're going to have, we'll see how Julian and Mybell. Here comes Mybell back down to a stop here. He needs to hit a stop. Okay, hits it good. He's going up. He's going to go for fuel or go for tires.
Yellow. Got a yellow. Chris Lewis is going through the grass in turns 1 and 2. It appears as though pit lane has claimed another exit.
Yeah, let's watch this.
Let's get on board with him and have a look, Gary.
Yeah, let's ride on the roll bar here. So here he comes. Okay, he's trying to control it. Oh, there, yeah, just on the power, hit that power band we're talking about, comes around.
Oh.
And now he's trying to recover the car. And frustrated, understood. Hits that same thing again. And keep in mind when they have new tires. I believe he had new tires from hitting pit road, but they're also lighter on fuel. They're not as heavy as they used to be coming off of pit road. So,
just to appeal to my brain a minute, I was watching the RPM indicator. Went from 5 to 6 to 7 very predictably, and then from 8 to 10 in an instant. Oh, sorry.
So Pedro came out as the leader, and he pitted late, and he managed to come out as the leader when that caution fell. Now we hear him. We're riding with him, and now we hear him burning off fuel.
That's always an interesting thing to do, especially in these cars, because the wheel doesn't give you as much information as the new Cosworth wheel does. This one has a water temperature and an oil temperature readout.
Yeah, this doesn't have the Pi LED screen that the IR18 has.
It doesn't give you as much information, and you can very easily blow the engine doing that.
Yeah.
We saw Pablo do that at Texas, if you recall.
Yeah, little bit more lower tech these cars than the IR18.
Oh.
So that's going to bring us a sprint to the end. Teammates at 1 and 2. Matthias Weeks up 12 spots in P3. Molina is in P4. His racing buddy seemed like that entire last stint. Holbloom is 5th. Santos, despite missing his marks on pit road, managed to recover, is 6th. Karsala, now he has a whole bunch of cars in front of him that aren't on the lead lap. Diggs, Santos, Sullivan, and O'Sullivan and Weiniger not on the lead lap in front of him. I believe with 10 laps to go, those guys might get waved back. He might be waved forward. That's an IndyCar rule that will put the leaders in direct contact. Same thing with Bonnie. Bonnie will probably be able to benefit from that rule as well. He's 8th. Doshinko, after spinning out on pit road and losing a ton of time, is 9th. And he could really thank his boss right behind him for bringing out that yellow, because Doshinko was probably going to go a lap down.
I will point this out as our race engineer in chat has pointed out. Bill Colley has just set a new world record from the pit lane in terms of miles per hour, 566.9.
Yeah, I don't know how the overlay detects that and everything. We're in the process of getting the new overlay, and that corrects some of that stuff. But
did we see a Dallara strapped to a Saturn V?
No, we did not.
Okay. Anyway, so
we'll show them out there.
10 less than 10 to go. All the lap cars are going to go to the back.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So you will see Karsala in P7 get a big wave up, and that's he's gonna like that, because right now he has starting with O'Sullivan right there, and the Santos, Weininger, they're all right there in front of him. So he'll get waved by them.
Something else, Chris Lewis came in, took his last set of tires. So even though he spun out, did a little bit of yard work in turn 1, he's going to come out. He's going to have a
might as well. Yeah, might as well.
Yeah. You're going to be 10th anyway. You might as well, right?
So Vazzi back on the lead lap there, so he'll get the wave forward as we are coming, I believe, now to 1 to go. We're coming to
we're gonna
green.
get the green.
Oh, we
Yeah, we're gonna
so
get the green.
interesting
Base
that
cars off.
those guys did not get that. We did not see the position change. Well, maybe it's not enabled in the sim. And here we go. And watch Cedric Olboom, car just gripping for grip, just reaching for grip, stretching for it. Now it's underway.
Hunting rear Firestones, hunting for purchase. On the pavement at Michigan, Julian Alcena, Pedro Blevel lead. Pedro 1, Julian 2. They're going to be followed by Matthew Weeks in 3rd, Maximus Molina 4th, Cedric Colboom at 5th. On the backstretch, and here comes Julian. Now, we have not actually seen how hard these cars can be driven in this race today. Nobody has gone 10 tenths to this point. We're going to see 10 tenths right now. If I was a betting guy, and Gary, you know that I'll gamble on which one goes first. Those two VOR cars are going to run side by side the remainder of the race.
Yeah. And Weeks is going to join him, and he's probably going to, at this point, take it 3 wide. Now, again, these guys that don't drive this car very often, hopefully they are aware of the netcode risk. And putting 3 cars together like that does enhance risk. He's thinking about sending it up the middle. But now he's just helping Julian.
So what you want to do is you want to use you see the darker lines in the racetrack there? Those are the seams where they build the banking. Those are
right.
strips of tar. You want to use the seams as a guideline. And so one guy use them almost like lanes, like slots almost. Okay, so Pedro on the bottom, he's got slot 1. Julian's got slot 2. If you want to go around him, you're going to have to drive up into slot 3. Really, you can make it 4 and 5 wide.
Julian at the line that time by. We're riding along with Pedro right now. Sorry, did we cut you off? We are, I believe the apron is available for racing on the last lap. So we should see that come into play. Weeks trying to find where he should go, trying to push Julian ahead. Julian is ahead. Julian, if he wanted to, he's not quite clear. He could have tried the Brazilian clear, and maybe might have made it.
I think what you want to do if you're Weeks is you want to push Julian past Pedro, just not give him a choice. And then when Julian's going to be presented with pull left. Excuse me, is going to be presented with pull left, be passed. Julian's going to pull left, and then you would be then on the outside. By the way, Michigan is unique. Michigan and California, although they look similar, Michigan is a little bit more steeply banked.
Yep.
Because of that,
18 to 14, 18 versus 14 degrees. One last thing before we get to the white flag here. Do want to thank Track Cams for Gourmets for their use of their cameras for all of our races, all Race First races going forward this year and whenever we got his permission. I just want to thank him and go to his website, TrackCam22. To find out get some track cams for your version of iRacing as well. 2 laps to go. Julian just a nose ahead at the end of the backstretch. Now side by side going into 3. Still side by side. Yeah, he led that lap barely. We'll watch it.
What I was going to say is they come to the white flag is the top is preferred at Michigan. The bottom is
here we go. 3 wide. White flag in the air. Weeks on the high side, just no momentum up there. At least not coming down the backstretch. Going to cut down low. He might try to push by Bell and to push through Julian, and he didn't get the run on the apron coming to the checkered. Down the backstretch, still side by side, coming into 3. Julian with the edge. He'll lose that edge going through the corner. They're now crowding each other. We're looking at the checkered flag coming to the checkered. 4 cars side by side. Weeks up the middle. He doesn't know where to go. He actually made contact with other cars, and it's Julian. I think it's Julian at the line. 0.008.
It's going to be Julian by about half the width of the front wing, and we've got Pedro and Matthew Weeks wrecking in the background, but well done. That was Julian and Weeks wrecking in the background. Blevel got him by Alcena got him by I don't know, what is that, 3 inches maybe?
Yeah. Let's see if we can maybe go back and see what that might be.
By the way, Julian is he going to do what I would do, or is he going to destroy the motor? Is going to destroy the motor. So what I was about to say while you get the replay, Gary, is Michigan. I love Michigan. California, because they're the only Michigan, California, and Phoenix are the only 3 tracks we race at. You can go to where, Gary?
Oh, I'm working on looking at this finish here.
He's going.
Yeah, just
Michigan,
barely.
California, and Phoenix. Only three tracks you can go to victory lane. Let's see what it is.
And that's about as close as we're going to get right there.
I'm glad they got a camera down there. Good grief.
Yeah, I don't have the controls. Hopefully the new overlay will have better controls. Yeah, that's about as best as we're going to do here, is watching that one anyways. And he's in pit
Not
road.
much.
He's in pit road. Or he's in victory lane. There he is. Yeah, there he is. Cool. All right. Well, wanted to show you a better one, but again, we're going to invest in a new overlay here, which makes a lot of this stuff a lot more easier. And yeah, otherwise I'd have to do it with the iRacing one, and I really don't want to do that. But let's get today's final standings in here.
So, Julian Alcina going to be your winner. Pedro Blebel second. Matthew Weeks is going to be third.
And that's your podium, yep.
That's your podium. Maximus Molina brings it home a very fine fourth. And our leader for quite a bit of the afternoon, Sigurd Holbom, is fifth. Edson Santos sixth. Sam Karasawa seventh. Piotr Dovzinko eighth. Alexander Bani ninth. Patrick Silvazzi rounds out
yep.
your top 10.
I'll take the rest here. We got Chris Lewis with the TI Racing crew at 11th. Good start for him. He doesn't race these cars very often, so good on him. Darren Weingard 12th. Santos 13th. Diggs 14th. Liam O'Sullivan kind of struggled after making contact with the wall on the restart there in 15th. Silva, Mertz, Lovern, Kinder, Christensen, Weber, Colley, and Strauss are the remainder of your 23-car field, as we have Julian giving the Polish victory lap right now.